everybody, it's attorney Veronica McClendon, the owner and CEO of McClendon Law Consulting, located in Macon, Georgia. Did y'all know that October was Estate Planning Awareness Month? Well, now you do. You do know now. And I wanted to come on and just talk with you all a little bit about the importance of estate planning, tell a little bit about my journey to doing this work, and also just wanted to encourage everybody to go ahead and take the time out to do your estate planning. And if you already have an estate plan in place, think about whether it's time for you to update your plan. If it's been a little while, maybe some things in your life have changed. Perhaps somebody has passed away, or someone that you listed as an agent or an executor is no longer the type of person that you want serving in that role. Because people change sometimes, and you might want to update your plan to reflect the changes in the people in your life. So if that is the case, it might be time for you to update your plan. And it's important that when you update it, that you don't try to market or change it yourself. You need to go back to your attorney or go to a new one, whichever one you need to do, and have them to create an entirely new estate plan for you. Now, it's going to build upon that previous plan, but it's going to be accounting for changes in the law as well as changes in your own life. So that's a little plug to those who already have an estate plan in place. It might be time for you to review it. If it's been a few years or if something in your life has changed, then it might be a good time for you to consider updating your plan. I also want to just talk about how estate planning is something that I think more and more people are talking about it these days, but for a long time, it's not something that was part of the everyday person's conversation. I think a lot of people assume that estate planning is something that only rich people need to do. I've had people tell me I don't have an estate. I don't really have much. And I tell them that an estate is everything that a person owns at the time of their death. So you may not have an estate now. That's true. But when you pass away, when you transition, then you will have an estate. That estate can have $5 in it, or that estate can have $500,000 or $5 million, whatever it might be. Whatever you own at the time of your death is going to be your estate. Another thing to keep in mind when it comes to estate planning is that it's not always just about passing on your property to the next generation, but it's also about putting someone in charge of your affairs in the event that a representative is needed. I actually spent a lot of time this morning doing some research about estates and about property transfers after a person dies and when an estate is opened, who has control of the property. And a lot of the research that I did dealt with lawsuits. So perhaps the person didn't necessarily own a lot of property, but they needed somebody to file a lawsuit on their behalf. Of course, the person who died, they really don't care at that point who represented them. But the family of that person, they needed to have some clarity on who would have the legal authority to handle that person's legal affairs. And so it's important that even if you don't think you own a lot of stuff, that you have a plan in place, because there could be lawsuits, there could be claims. I've had clients who perhaps they didn't have a lot when they died, but the circumstances of their death gave rise to a legal claim, and they needed somebody to step in to represent their estate so that their spouse or their children could benefit from whatever that legal claim might have been for that person. So that's another thing just to think about. Estate plan is not just about property that you own now. It's about legal rights. It's about property that your estate may be entitled to in the future, even after you're gone. So that's another reason why it's important to have your estate plan in place. I will say that for me, estate planning was not the top of my radar. When I started my law practice for the first time, this is actually my second private law practice where I was the attorney on my own. But the first time I started a law firm, I was focused on working with children, and I wanted to help the parents of children and help children who had been involved in the school discipline system and who were at risk of being kicked out of school, or kids who were at risk of going to jail, especially those who had disabilities, whose disabilities contributed to their behavior. So I was doing that as part of my practice. And at some point toward the end of that practice, I started thinking about estate planning, but it was something that I was not even, it was not on my radar. When I went to law school, I did not take any classes having anything to do with estate planning because I just thought, one, it was depressing, two, it was boring, and three, it just had nothing to do with what I wanted to do in my life. And then, today, here I am talking about estate planning all the time because one, it's like when I think about poverty and reversing poverty and helping people to pass on wealth, one of the best ways to do that is through estate planning. If you don't have anything in writing to say what happens to your property after you die, who gets your property, then that's just going to be up to state law. And sometimes families will take the proper legal actions to get the estate transitioned to the heirs, and sometimes they don't. And that's how families end up losing property. That's how they end up with heirs property. I know I deal a lot with heirs property. That's how they end up with property that could have been worth a decent amount of money being dwindled down to something that's not really as much money because people fought over the estate. Or it's also how you end up with people losing their property because nobody can figure out what to do with that property, so it ends up just being sold. So realizing that helping people with their property, their land, any kind of assets that they leave behind when they die, making sure there's a plan in place for that, their family gets to benefit from it. The next generation is a little bit better off than the one before them. They have something to help them to start to build upon, I guess, that perhaps their parents might not have had, or maybe they did. But either way, we want to make sure that each generation gets to benefit from what the previous one has built and acquired. So I started to realize that estate planning was really critical when it came to preserving wealth and passing along wealth to the next generation. It has a lot to do with stabilizing communities. If you go around your neighborhood or anybody's neighborhood and you see blighted houses, you see commercial properties that have been abandoned, a lot of times it's because it's heirs property. It's property that someone left behind and the family didn't do anything to pass it to the next generation. Perhaps they didn't know what to do or how to do it. And so having an estate plan can give your heirs that clarity about what to do with the property that you leave behind. And a lot of times people are not thinking about that. Like most people are not thinking, what kind of legal documents do I need to put in place to pass my property to the next generation? They're not thinking about what's the best way to set up my estate so that my family can benefit from it in the most abundant way, perhaps would say that. But an attorney can help you think through those things. So I started realizing that and seeing that I had a role to play when it came to estate planning, and that it was something that I should take on. And it just really has unfolded and evolved from there. It's been an amazing journey that I'll talk about a little bit more in future videos. But estate planning is actually now one of my favorite things to do and one of my favorite things to talk about. If you ever been to a workshop that I've done or a webinar, you can see me just really getting into the details and enjoying talking to people about setting up their estate plans. So to me, it's not something that is a sad situation. It's not a depressing thing anymore, because I realize that it's a way I can help people to, first of all, develop a vision for their life that perhaps they had not really focused on much, but then also to help them to be a blessing to the next generation. So I will be talking more about this over the next few days and the next few weeks, because as I said before, October is Estate Planning Awareness Month. And we're also going into November, which is what people are calling gift giving month. I had never heard of that before this year, but people are like, oh, it's gift giving season. It's gift giving month. So, okay, I'm going to go with it. As we're talking about gift giving in the month of November, we're going to talk about the gift of estate planning and how estate planning can be a gift to your next generation. And if you keep listening, you will learn how to give the gift of estate planning to those you love. We will have more information about that. But if you are interested in starting your estate planning with my law firm, if you live in the state of Georgia, you can go down to the description of this video and click on the link to schedule a clarity call with me. and we can talk with you about your estate planning goals and talk with you about some of the opportunities that we have to, one, get a discount on your own estate plan, but then two, give the gift of a discount to someone that you love. So check it out. I look forward to continuing this conversation with y'all. Everyone have a great rest of your day, whatever time or day you're watching this. And this is attorney Veronica McClendon with McClendon Law Consulting, located in Macon, Georgia. Y'all take care.